Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, you know what this means, Peter. This is Sunday afternoon, and the fate of the world is about to be decided. Never mind about anything going on in Kabul. This is where things are going to be decided. It means that it is time for the thumbs ups and thumbs downs of the week. So I'll go first, and it's something we talked about earlier this week, but in the case of Julian Assange, we had the most outrageous ruling imaginable from the judge on the United Kingdom High Court, because we had two reports by a mental health specialist, an eminent professor from King's College London, an eminent neuropsychiatrist, who had diagnosed Julian Assange as somebody dangerously prone to suicide. In the first report, out of discretion and an attempt to not to endanger the lives of Julian Assange's partner and his small children, he made no mention of the fact that he had a partner and two small children. He rectified this in a later report. He mentioned that. The Americans said, this psychiatrist had misled the court, and therefore no weight should be given to his evidence, as if somehow not mentioning the partner and small children that did anything to diminish his position on Julian Assange's proneness to suicide. But in any case, the judge, Barreza, knew about the two reports, knew this psychiatrist claims and the Americans' challenge, and nonetheless said that I do not believe that Kopelman was misleading the court. He had a reason why he didn't disclose about his partner and the two small children, but he rectified it and said that there was no attempt to deceive, and yet but nonetheless she decided against extradition of Assange, based largely on his finding that there's a danger of suicide. The Americans made an appeal on that basis, and on other issues about the prison conditions, and that somehow Judge Barreza hadn't really done a proper inquiry into prison conditions in the United States. The High Court said, okay, you can go ahead with this appeal, but only on the issue of the prison conditions. You cannot bring up the issue of his mental health. That was the ruling of the High Court. And then this was overturned by a more senior judge who said, no, you can bring up the issue of his mental health in addition to the issues about prison conditions. This is an absolute outrage, because what we know about appellate courts is appellate courts cannot second guess judges on essentially factual matters, on what weight to give evidence. That's entirely within the realm of the judge. All appellate courts get in on is whether you've understood the law, you've misinterpreted the law. So this was clearly an attempt to keep the Americans happy. Either way, the grounds for the appeal by the Americans is ludicrous. They're both flimsy. The issue of the prison conditions is ridiculous. And the issue of his mental health is even more ridiculous. So that's my big thumbs down of the week.
But isn't it really interesting with this whole extradition process and appeals and all of it and reports and all? It gets further and further away from. But there's no case here.
No.
I mean, that's what really astounds me,
yes.
Because you did, as usual, in great detail, explain what's going on here. But it's almost like displacing it from the real story, because right. We have the original case was built against Assange is completely in tatters right now. I mean, it's embarrassingly in tatters right now. So you have this extradition kind of floating, like defying gravity. Is like, where's the case though? I mean, right. The case is gone. Right. How is it we're floating above this here?
Right.
That's what really that's what really angers me so much, is that why don't we look at the merits, okay? I am not a psychiatrist, you're not a psychologist, but we understood, because it's been going on a long time, what they claim to be the merits of the case, and then boom, it's gone. Okay, why are we here? Right. Why are we here? Right. And it shows empire is relentless. It's not about what he actually did. It's about someone that challenged them, and that is unacceptable. Yep. And anyone that challenges us and our narrative must be annihilated. I mean, and completely, no mercy, no ifs or buts. It's done, and that's why they continue with it. It's psychotic. This, yes. And I've said before, I'm expressing my own personal opinion. I think that they just want to run the clock out on the man's life.
No, I think it's right. I mean, the case was always very flimsy. They didn't like the fact that he was publishing material that was embarrassing the US government. So they came up with this cockamamie story that, oh, he was really involved in hacking. And so on hacking, they can say, oh, so that we're not really attacking the freedom of the press. We're getting into hacking. But then it turns out the hacking case was total nonsense. It was based on this liar, thief. He stole money from WikiLeaks, and pedophile. I mean, who basically has admitted that he lied to US prosecutors. So it's going ahead on this case, on this nonsensical story. And the Biden administration is continuing with this. I mean, and doesn't seem to be coming in for any criticism. Just continuing with this, and it really is just mind-boggling by the fact that this absolutely ridiculous case is going forward. And now, as you say, we're getting into the issue of all the mental health, well, about the prison condition. Well, it wasn't up to the judge to get into the whole story about the prison conditions. I mean, that it was up to the prosecutors. If they knew perfectly well that that Julian Assange was going to make an appeal on the basis of prison conditions in the United States. So why didn't the prosecutors prepare for that? Why didn't they present saying, no, he's not going to a supermax. He's going to really, a country spa. That's where he's going. So they didn't prepare for any of that. And, and so, they shouldn't have been allowed to appeal on that basis on the prison conditions issue.
Folks, do you know what this is like? Let me give you a real world example. This is like the continuing negotiation of the terms and conditions of Brexit after Brexit's already happened, okay? Because you continue to talk about something that doesn't make it done. It's right. Because in the case of Julian Assange, the entire case against him has completely fallen apart. And they're still in the courtroom still talking about, well, we have to, put him on trial. On what charges? Your evidence is gone. Right. There's no evidence, there's no discovery. Your discovery was a liar.
Yep, exactly.
Admitted liar. That actually, for all we know, infiltrated WikiLeaks, then became a some kind of source, official, unofficial, paid, but we're not going to go into minutiae there, but had a connection with the FBI and American intelligence, okay? Right. And then he recants everything.
Yes.
And he's a known person of dubious character in Iceland. If he just made a few calls.
Yes, yeah. It's so, whole thing is just so shocking. I mean, every aspect of this case has just been shocking. From starting from that ridiculous nonsense that the Swedes came up with, and then then the Swedes dropped the case, but nonetheless the British said that they were going to arrest him, even though the Swedes had just dropped their extradition request. I mean, just every single thing. I mean, that has fallen apart, and yet it just still continues. Kafkaesque doesn't even begin to describe it.
And jumping bail. Well, where was George Soros? Okay, that kind of stuff all the time. All right, we've labored the point. You get our point.
Okay.
All right. Kind of very broadly, considering what's going on right now, media coverage of the Afghan story. just tying themselves up into knots and pretzels and everything, pointing fingers, this administration, that would just should have done that. No, it was wrong, folks, from the very beginning. We just did a video on it. George used the perfect term, a caper. This is what it was. It was one big grift for 20 years, $1 trillion gone, where to go, no accountability. And the media wants to get into, well, if Trump hadn't done this, and Biden should have been. No. It's all wrong, okay? Then don't listen to this nonsense, okay? Turn the volume down or change the channel, because it's all nonsense. What is important is not the helicopters leaving the Kabul embassy. What's important is anything been learned?
Yes.
And will we avoid this again? Keep those two thoughts in your mind as you have these hysterical people that have no idea what they're talking about.
That's absolutely right. I mean, if after 20 years, this entity that you have created cannot survive for more than a few days against a bunch of ragtag brigands, who have no serious foreign support behind them, then obviously there's something wrong with this 20-year caper, and it needs to be terminated as quickly as possible. And then the question has to be raised: why wasn't it terminated much earlier? Because it was much earlier. It was obvious that this was going nowhere. It was if after 5 years you haven't achieved anything, you have to withdraw. After 10 years you haven't achieved anything, you need to withdraw. And yet all these administrations, Bush, Obama, and then finally Trump made the right call. I mean, still go, well, let's continue it. And even after Trump made the decision, you had the military saying, no, we can't possibly do this. No, we have to stay on. And then Biden initially said, yeah, we continue to stay on. So, I mean, when you raise the right question, has anything been learned? I doubt it.
Well, the interesting thing too is that it was, and we said previously, of course, a lot of conservatives, interventionists, they're going to blame, Biden, and sure, and we explained in our previous video where he's at fault, okay? But at the end of the day, this is the storyline: is that the politicians got it wrong. The military did fine. They did what they were supposed to do. That is completely false, everyone. Right. Okay, that's we know that, and because the Trump administration leaked like a sieve, I mean, we know that his underlings lied to him. Okay, right. And also to give Biden and this kind of goes into my second to be determined thumbs. Okay, and a lot of people are going to be really angry with me when I say this. But I think Biden is doing the right thing. He got to this place in the wrong way, okay. But I think he's still doing the right thing. Is just bite the bullet. We got to get out of there. We got to stop this nonsense.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's it. He made the right call. Just like Richard Nixon made the right call in Vietnam. He just said that this cannot go on, and then just gradually began the drawdown. And finally, basically said, we have to bite the bullet. And South Vietnam probably won't survive, but this war cannot continue. I mean, it's just it's devastating the United States, and ultimately you might make the right call, just like de Gaulle made the right call in Algeria. We can't go on fighting this forever.
And everyone, keep in mind, Southeast Asia, thousands and thousands of miles away from the United States. Afghanistan, thousands and thousands of miles away from the United States. De Gaulle, at the time, Algeria was a department of France, of sovereign, integral part of France. And here is a person, that any other politician would have been absolutely I mean, what was the name of the film?
The Day of the Jackal?
The Day of the Jackal. That's what any other politician would have faced. And
that's it. And that just shows the intensity of
right.
the anger that de Gaulle's policy generated. And look, I mean, there were millions of the Pied Noirs who fled. They fled Algeria. I mean, because of the terror about what was going to happen to them once the Muslim government was established there. So yeah, that was a painful decision that that France took. This is relatively painless. I mean, the soldiers who died. They died for nothing, just like the soldiers in Vietnam. They died for nothing. But what you should take away from that: don't do this. I mean, don't keep doing this, and don't then say, our credibility is on the line. We can't possibly withdraw, so we have to stay on for a few more years because otherwise, Russia or China or Tehran, or they're going to they're going to see that America is really a paper tiger.
The only thing I would ask as a post-mortem, where's the money?
No.
Who's got it? What properties do they own in the Gulf? How much of that money is in American bank accounts? Okay, can there be any accountability for it? Oh, I suppose there's a very large lobby for that, George. No, that's why I can continue. I've always called it a grift. Everybody was getting paid. That's why it continued. It wasn't to educate the little girls of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
No, and considering the U.S. military knew about the child abuse among their Afghan peers, which unspeakable. Okay, and they had knowledge of that. No, it was about the grift. Doesn't matter because my bank account is being filled up as we speak. And I'm sorry, my cynicism is deep and angry about this.
Yeah, no, that was another aspect of the caper, the abuse of boys that went on under the observing eyes of the American military. In other words, this was happening on American military barracks, that this abuse of boys was taking place, and they were turning a blind eye because these are our allies. So it was very sordid. Okay, all right. So my next thumbs down is that basically Brown University came out with a study this week about the this is Brown University. This is a very reputable college. A study about children born during the pandemic, and what they're saying is that we find that children born during the pandemic have significantly reduced verbal, motor, and overall cognitive performance compared to children born pre-pandemic. Moreover, we find that males and children in lower socioeconomic families have been most affected. And they explain why the reasons for it, which is that because of the stay-at-home orders that closed businesses, daycare, schools, playgrounds, and limited child learning and typical activities, fear of infection and possible employment loss has placed stress on parents, while parents who could work from home face challenged in both working and providing full-time attentive childcare. For pregnant individuals, fear of attending prenatal visits also increased maternal stress, anxiety, and depression. And so they talked about missed educational opportunity, reduced interaction, stimulation, and creative play with other children, and how that has clearly affected development. This is quite shocking, and where apparently we're still masks, lockdowns, distancing. I mean, these findings show what anyone with any common sense would have seen, that this masking is clearly affecting children's development, their verbal skills and behavioral skills and everything else, for a very obvious reason. They can't see the reaction of others, and therefore they're not able to learn the whole process of socialization. And I mean, when you think of, you get reports like this, and no one's thinking, oh no, we're still attacking DeSantis for not going for mask mandates and so on. Again, it doesn't look like anyone's prepared to learn the proper lessons.
Yeah, I mean, is this really just all about politics and short-term political gain? Because that's what it sounds like to me. Well, why are we arguing Fauci, DeSantis, and all this? You know, everyone should be reading this report.
Right.
Okay, I mean, and now you're going to get young people for 2 years, no in-school education. George, that's just a car wreck. That's a car wreck for those people.
Right.
You don't care about them, do you?
Children cannot
because of something that Trump said.
Yes. Right.
This isn't. I mean, this has turned into a psychosis, and it's only getting worse.
Yeah.
We should be out of this. We should be out of this.
Exactly. Because we know children can't learn online. It's not in their nature. They can't sit still and learn online. I mean, it's just, they can't do it. Children need to socialize. I mean, they go to school, part of it is education, part of it is socialization, interacting with others, their peers. If you lose all that, then of course it's going to affect, their cognitive skills, behavioral skills, everything. You would have think, and now we're heading towards the 3rd year of this pandemic, and the hysteria is just unabated. And so, let's ram these masks down on these tiny children.
But again, we have to go back to our usual caveats here. There are those that have taken advantage of this. Their children are getting in classroom education with maybe tutors. Okay, they're getting the whole ball of wax. Okay, and it's so easy to virtue signal your politics, as long as it doesn't affect my family, not my little boy, not my little girl. Okay, these hypocrites out there. It's astounding how much damage they're willing to wrought against an entire society. And as you pointed out, quoting the study there, it's the most vulnerable and the poorest among us that have become the worst victims of this. And they're supposed to be their protectors. Give me a break, okay? So, a very sad point here. Kind of doing a little bit of a cul-de-sac here. I won't go into great length, but it's just something that really irritated me. Everyone knows that George and I are avid viewers of the Tucker Carlson show, but having Eric Prince on talking about Afghanistan, I found very offending, and I was offended by it because he's a mercenary, and basically he has, as far as I can tell, he has no real politics. He wants the privatized wars. You pay me, give me legal privileges, and I'll do what you ever. That's called mercenary army. We don't do that. We shouldn't do that. Okay, because it always will be seen in the name of America. Okay, and that is not something that I find acceptable. I don't want to belabor the point, but these people, these are scavengers. Okay, these are vultures and scavengers trying to pick up little crumbs off of the body politic and the taxpayer. Okay.
I agree with you. I wasn't sure what exactly he was doing there on Tucker Carlson. I mean, other than he didn't like Biden, and so he said something negative about Biden. But again, as with all these people, it's incoherent as to, well, what's your position? Well, if we'd done this or done that, we would have won, or whatever.
Yeah, so, was he asked the question, how much money have you made off this war? Yeah. That would have been a good question.
Yeah, no, that's right. So yeah, I thought it was bizarre. I mean, I thought, why not bring on Colonel McGregor? I mean, McGregor, who's there usually on Tucker Carlson, usually very sensible, and he would have probably said, look, what Biden's doing now is right. I mean, he may be inarticulate, and he may be being a kind of a slimy, wormy-like character in trying to blame Trump for things, but he's holding firm and saying that the common sense thing, the common sense, which is, hey, if they can't fight for themselves, we can't do the fighting for them. Something that Lyndon Johnson said about Vietnam in 1961, I think. Hey, American boys can't do the fighting that Asian boys should be doing, but he didn't learn his own lesson. But that's exactly it. Biden is making the perfectly reasonable point. But that wasn't even the point that he was making. So I don't know,
what point was he making?
I have no idea. That's what I mean. I had no idea what he was there to, what exactly he was saying. I listened to that and I thought, so what do we do now? I mean, I know you don't like Biden, and I know Biden's messed everything up, but what's the alternative? So yeah. So my next point is this is something what we should talk about, I think, at great length next week, which is the United States is getting itself into all sorts of quarrels with Poland. If it's one issue after another. Again, you think, don't you have enough on your plate with Afghanistan? But no, they're going to all sorts of issues. So Poland has just passed a piece of legislation which limits the ownership of media company to companies based in the European Economic Area. So they said, obviously, that hey, well, we don't want Russians and Chinese to buy up media companies. But of course, it obviously affects American company, which is Discovery Inc., which is the owner of TVN, big television station in Poland. So the American government under Antony Blinken, furious about this. Senators have been writing angry letters against Poland. But you're discriminating against this. Then you have Poland they got themselves into a whole lot of hassle with the European Union. They set up a kind of a disciplinary commission as a way of getting rid of judges. The European
communist era judges.
Well, I think it was just it was a disciplinary mechanism. I mean, yeah, obviously communist era, but it's a disciplinary mechanism. It's a way of removing judges. Now, I think it's a very good idea to get rid of judges. I mean, I really think that it is ridiculous that judges should be allowed to go on forever. I mean, America pays the price of judges simply, into the 80s and 90s, continuing to issue rulings when it's quite clear that they have no idea what's going on, and whoever it is, the clerks, the court attorneys who are writing these decisions. So I think every country should have its own mechanism for pushing judges out when the time has come. So Poland got itself into a whole lot of hassle with the European Union over that, but Poland has backed down, on this issue, because the European Union can, turn the money spigot, and against them. And now Poland's got itself into another dispute with the United States and Israel in this case, which is on the issue of the restitution payments for property taken during the Nazi era, but which in the communist era, they just simply nationalized everything. And so, that everything just became owned by the state. And so you had to essentially, after the communists had left and the property was privatized, then you had all these restitution claims. And Poland is basically adopting a law saying there's a 30-year time limit on these restitution claims. Americans are absolutely livid over this, and Israel is livid over this. Well, you have to say, though, that countries like Poland, they're not rich countries. It's very, very difficult for them to start doling out lots and lots of money to claimants who are probably quite dubious. I mean, if you're a distant relative, do you really have a claim on that? Some great great uncle twice removed. His property was stolen from him. It's a big financial burden. You can see why Poland doesn't really want to go down that path. And again, you have to say, Germany was kind of primarily to blame for all of this. It's kind of walked away, paying minimal restitution to the countries that he invaded. It has paid a lot of money to Israel, but for the countries that it devastated, it's paid a minimal amount. So we've been very critical of many aspects of Poland over the years, but in this case, you have to feel, why is Poland continually getting clobbered over the head while Germany just sails forward and everyone's happy? Anyway.
Well, I mean, the price for the ticket to be in the club, George.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
I said this to them when it was going on, is that you're going to lose so much control. Okay. There'll be distant capitals making decisions for you. Well, like Moscow used to.
Right.
I warned them of this here. About restitution, all of that. There's different levels of political sensitivity. look what happened in East Germany. You know, they nationalized all the Junker class, okay, all of their vast estates and all that. And they did the same thing about statutes of limitations, and like, oh well, they've expired. I mean, sorry. I mean, you're a prince, or okay, well, wear the title because it's our land, okay? And where's the big? I mean, obviously, within some elements of Germany, obviously feel differently about it, but it was considered, that was one of the problems that we ended up getting into that era, and we have to eliminate here. Look, this whole mantra for reparations, at the end of the day, I'm fundamentally against it because I don't see that it solves particularly.
I think it's right. Yeah.
I mean, if look, I remember going to Israel and I think it was 1988, and I was with a young Polish woman, and we stayed with distant friends, not relatives, distant friends of her relatives. That they knew each other in the Lublin area before the war and during the war. And they constantly talked about all of this kind of restitution, but it was like a cottage. And I just said, are you sure it exists even?
Yeah, well, that's
I have the key, it must exist. I said, there was a war there, okay? I mean, for a lot of people, I can understand that, but I don't see the utility of it in the end.
No.
Because it's a slippery slope. I mean, at what point are the Dutch going to want New York back? Okay,
well, it is a very slippery slope, and ultimately, Israel, they're not paying out any compensation. I mean, all the lands that they took. I mean, the Palestinians who were driven off that land, no compensation for them. And I say, hey, you've got this basic high-rise apartments live on this piece of land. Hey, that used to belong to someone. So it's exactly the same way. You say, well, my great-great-grandparents, used to live here. Yeah, but it's gone. That property's gone now. It's an office block there. What are you going to do? I mean, what they're going to take down this office block and you're going to get this piece of land back? I mean, it's nonsensical. You're going to kick out people from the house that they're living in. They've been living there for decades. You're going to kick them out. And again, your claims to it are always very dubious, because it's like you're the grandson. I mean, it's often a very distant relative who starts making these claims. So I think it's a slippery slope, and it's something that could go on forever. These legal disputes will just go on endlessly.
I have to get in the case of Poland, it's very important. People have to understand is that Western historiography of the Second World War, the Poles, and I think with justification, feel that they're minimised by what happened, because I mean, you remember that case when Obama called the Polish death camps? Remember that? And the Poles really, which of course they have every right to be very upset about that. Right. But Western views are very myopic here. Right. I mean, unfortunately, from my point of view, is that a lot of Poles are just as sensitive about the Second World War as Russians are, but for different political reasons. Yes. Okay. And so they feel that they're slighted in that sense. And of course, again, the price of the ticket to be in the club, your next door neighbor, Germany, right? All of this, okay?
Exactly. That's right. And unfortunately, Poland's problem, as always, is that they get on badly with the country to the west and the country to the east. You got to pick a side, but you don't want to. It's kind of like between the wars, bad relation with Germany, bad relation with the Soviet Union, which is why Orban has been so smart. He has bad relations with the West, but he's maintained good relations with the East, and that gives him a certain leverage. Because he said, well, I've got options. I mean, if you really get nasty with me, I have other places to go, which gives him a certain amount of room to maneuver. Poland doesn't have very much room.
Poland always gets itself in a position where it draws a line in the sand. We're against all of you.
Exactly.
Not a good policy.
Not a good policy.
I mean, it might feel good for a nanosecond. Okay.
Right. Not a good policy. If you're not strong enough, I mean, and no country is strong enough. Even Germany couldn't basically take on everyone.
For the third time, the price of admission. This is what happens. Okay. All righty. a huge thumbs down the media coverage of the ongoing Hunter Biden saga. I mean, this is extraordinary stuff. Another laptop is out there. I mean, this is screaming for investigation. I mean, when he's saying that a foreign intelligence service, in this case Russian, might have their, I mean, I don't care if it's if it's China or it's South Africa or Israel, it doesn't matter what country it is. I mean, you may have very sensitive information on that laptop, considering the video that we saw that you're out of your gourd. Okay.
Yeah.
And almost no reaction to it. Again, as I've said repeatedly here on the Gaggle, the way it's presented to the public is that, oh, that's a Fox News story.
Right.
And somehow it sanitizes it.
Right.
Where is the FBI?
Yeah, that's right. So in this story, he thinks that it was the Russians who stole the laptop. It could well be. And it may well be, it may well be in the hands of Russian intelligence by now. Quite a big story, given the obsession that the media had for 4 years about Trump's Russia connections. How many hours and how many pages, words were devoted to that nonsensical Trump Tower meeting, which had nothing to do with anything. Or the Russian Facebook ads, or all of the rest. But this, the son of the president, and who was clearly, the president was involved in his son's business dealings. I mean, there's plenty of evidence to suggest that he was very intimately involved in his son's dealings. This, he himself, Hunter, is concerned about this laptop. I mean, he's talking about it with this, maybe it's a prostitute. We're not exactly sure. So he's concerned about what was on that laptop and what's happened to it. And yeah, as you say, media just doesn't think, oh, it's just, what's it got to do with anything?
But in the conversation with the woman, it's all blurred out, is that he shows all his cards. I can be open to blackmail. Right. I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't like you maybe come to that conclusion. No, it's right in your face, folks. I'm really exposed here. I mean, he gives the game up.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So one of the things, and I'm going to steal this from Glenn Greenwald, because I think it's such a really good point. Where is the journalist that wants to make his or her name breaking this really huge story? Right. I guess it's what's her name over at the New York Post, the Australian woman.
Oh yeah, Miranda Devine.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's the one that's going to go to the bank with this here. Okay?
But she's got the other laptop. I mean,
but why is it like one person on cable that's interested in this story? It's extraordinary to me. I actually really like her. I like her report.
Oh, yeah, no, that's right. This whole issue of the media not paying any attention to Hunter Biden. There was Jonathan Turley, who was a constitutional law professor. He had a kind of an amusing take on it. He says that, well, it's all right. Biden will probably go out later on today to get an ice cream. And so the media can then inquire into the really big questions like, what flavor ice cream did you get, Mr. President? So that, that's Biden's go-to response whenever you have an embarrassing story. He goes off to get himself an ice cream.
This is the political elite and media elites sleepwalking to disaster because people are noticing it, George. Right. People are noticing it.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so, I mean, here, it's a kind of an obvious, I mean, given all that we've talked about, but I do think that thumbs down is the US military. We had that guy, General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, top military man. What was he concerned about? He's concerned about the white rage. Yeah, white rage on January 6th, how democracy was almost toppled, by a guy with a fur hat and horns and so on. He was talking about Marx and Mao and Lenin and and the critical race theory, gender. Why, you think, why are you preoccupying yourself with that rather than what should be in your job description, which is your task in Afghanistan. I mean, this war, ongoing war for 20 years, this should be your number one priority, not fighting against Trump and talking to journalists in order to get yet another negative story about Trump out there. You think this is an absolute disgrace that the military is led by such people. I mean, if Biden had any real sense, I mean, he would just simply purge the entire military, which
it's kind of like
should do, but no, none of them ever does.
It's kind of like General Westmoreland weighing in on the Chicago riots.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Well, it's nice to know what you think, General, but you're losing the war.
Well, exactly. This is your job. This is it. Now, all the rest, we've got enough gas bags to talk about January the 6th. We don't need you to weigh in. And there is a critical race theory. Critical race theory. What the hell are you talking about? Critical race theory. I mean, you've got this absolute debacle that you are responsible for, and that you don't seem to pay much attention to.
Again, like General Westmoreland, I think we need to desegregate using.
Yeah, that's right. That's quite weighing in. But it would be that exactly. Yeah, weighing in on that. Yes.
We shouldn't be laughing because it's really, really tragic. Okay. Number of stories came out over the last few weeks that I found very disturbing, and it's kind of on the back of what George was talking about, this Brown University report about our youngest and most vulnerable in society and the impact of the pandemic on them. Apparently now, because of the pandemic, but I think this is more of an excuse, is that more and more high schools and places of higher education just have no standards, okay? We need equity. We need equity.
Right.
Okay, 2 + 2 might be 4. It's debatable, apparently, okay? Yep. And if you don't think it's 4, that's okay. That's okay. It's like, coming in 13th place and getting a ribbon for it, okay?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, this is really toxic because there are more STEM kids in China than all of the Western world combined, everyone. Right. And that's not changing.
Yes, that's right. You got to.
It's not reported in Western media.
Right.
And and to know what China is doing, I suggest you actually go to CGTN, their soft power media project, and you get these very beautiful, vivid pictures of the lunar lander on Mars. I'm sorry, not on the moon and Mars. I mean, they're doing stuff, folks. Okay, they're doing stuff. Okay,
right.
And
no, I think that's.
You have these school districts saying, you're just going to graduate. I mean, this is the worst time in our country to be thinking about these things.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, this is kind of the problem, and we've talked about this before. Is like you have America, which is now as a major competitor, and then you got to make a decision. I mean, it's also, well, we got to take on China, so that the administration, Biden says this one day, we're going to take on China. This is the big existential challenge, and then you got all of the sort of the AOC crowd who say, yeah, well, no, we're going to basically have equity. We can't have these racist standardized tests. We can't have these educational standards that are all determined by white supremacy. You're going to have to make a decision. I mean, that's the point. And I mean, America's going to have to make a decision as to which way it's going to go. I mean, if you want to go down the AOC, Omar, the Minnesota Congresswoman, Omar, Tlaib, and all that, go down that path. That, and America will gradually fade into irrelevance. Make the other, make the choice that you've got to take these things seriously.
But all of the people making decisions are already part of the elite. It doesn't affect them. So what you're doing is you're telling people, poor people, people of color, you don't have to excel.
Right.
You don't have to learn. That is the worst possible message.
It is a way.
Because you're oppressed. No, you're not. Okay.
No,
the system is oppressing you. by saying you don't have to do anything to improve yourself.
Yes. No, that's right. I mean, it's the tyranny of low expectations, and of course, as you say, then the elite have their go-to response, which is, well, we just bring in immigrants. We import people from all over the world. Okay, fine. We don't have someone to do this, the software design work. Oh, we just go to Bangladesh and grab someone from Bangladesh. Bring someone in from China. We'll have someone from China. The person from China, he may well be spying and reporting back to China, but we'll bring him in. So that's it. That's their solution. But of course, what happens to everyone else? Then that's it. Then basically you can just dump them on the heap. They'll be doing nothing, probably just collecting their universal basic income. Okay, we'll give you a basic income. You don't have to do anything. Just stay home. Here's your universal basic income. That's the path that it's going down, and it's one that is going to be ended in real disaster.
That. If there's anything guaranteed, that's it.
Yeah.
Disaster.
Right.
Okay, you're
all right. Yeah, I have one more thumbs down, which is it happened in Tehran, that the Russian ambassador in Iran met the UK ambassador in Iran, and they posed on the terrace of the Russian embassy, but they posed it in a way that brought memories of the famous photograph of the big three at the Tehran conference in 1943. I don't know why they did it, but the Iranians were furious about this, because they say, hey, this is bringing back memories when Iran wasn't a sovereign country. It was basically ruled by either the British or the Russians. And I have to say, maybe the Iranians overreacted, but I can see their point. And I have to say, I don't know why the Russians did this. I mean, it's not that relations between the UK and Russia are particularly good now. Yeah, okay, it's very nice to think back on good old days of the Tehran conference, but we're nowhere near there yet. So having the stage photograph was kind of foolish, and they got punished for it because the Iranians were very upset about it.
Say what it is, a faux pas, a big one.
Yeah, big one, yeah.
I don't. I'm really mystified by what the thinking was.
I guess I thought, hey, well, let's remember the good old days when the British and the Russians.
Good old days it wasn't the good old days for the Persians.
No, that's what the Persians said. Yeah, no, 1943. We were just ruled by imperial powers. So that's why they didn't like that photograph.
Again, no word sometimes. Okay, my last thumbs up is a federal judge has ordered the Biden administration to reinstate Trump's remain in Mexico policy.
Right.
Now, that's good news, but it's not the end of the story. Okay, I mean, this is a long path. We can have another judge over. You talked about this earlier here, right. But there's a glimmer of hope here that there's and maybe Mayorkas and others in the administration may secretly be saying, well, we got ordered. They might want to take this as a lifeline. We'll see.
I agree. That was also
what's going on. This is the jostling going on right now.
Yeah, no, I was a thumbs up for me as well. And it's kind of interesting that, and this isn't covered very much in the media, there've been an awful lot of court rulings going against the Biden administration. This obviously was a big one, but there was another one about the when they put the moratorium on deportations. Again, the courts came down against them on that. Their kind of race-based federal program, when they said, or you can only get federal money if you're a member of a minority. The court struck that down. So there've been a number of these. So but media don't cover it. You remember endlessly, oh, Trump, is violating the Constitution. Trump is acting outside the law. The Biden administration's record with the courts has been worse than that was. So Biden won some, Trump won some cases in court. He lost some others. But Biden's record has been pretty dismal. I mean, the courts have pretty much struck down all of his, and this was a very big one. that this was the state of Mexico thing.
Just me kind of for a broader thing here. Again, my hobby horse here. This professional managerial class thinks they're so smart. I mean, Trump had some legal difficulties because he just didn't have it well thought out by his people. They're on a number of cases, but this seems to be on steroids with the Biden people. It's like we just want it. Well, it doesn't work that way. Okay, right. Sorry, you go home and kiss your wife on the cheek and say, we got those black farmers some money. Right. Well, I mean, I'm not against black farmers getting money, but if you're using it at the expense or saying you're targeting a group, I mean, I thought we got away from that in the 1960s.
You can't do it. I mean, it's basically it's the law is pretty basic in the United States. You can't allocate federal money based on race. I mean, it just cannot be done. And so, it was. I mean, you had it was so obvious that the courts are going to strike that down. But I just think that it is quite extraordinary that they're going by these executive actions, and they, as you say, they haven't really thought these things through, and they're getting hammered. And their record is worse than that of the Trump administration.
Well, one thing, I'll start wrapping this up here. There's something that George and I got to look at very carefully, because it looks very obvious now that the administration is really spooked by its really bad policy on the border. People are, and the thing is that you're getting, traditional Democrats are now beginning to get really upset about, what's going on here, because they're going to have to come up for re-election pretty soon. And this is sticking to them like tar and feathers.
I think it's right, because they're basically the most damaging aspect of it, not just that it's an open border and that you're shipping people all over the country, but that they're carrying the virus. One day you're talking about the hysteria about the virus, masks and whatnot, and then you're bringing in people who are sick. I mean, what kind of a government at any time brings in people who are carrying a contagious disease? And never. I mean, it's the one thing you expect border control is that you don't allow in people who are carrying contagious diseases. So absolutely. The Biden administration is paying the price.
And this is for you, Geraldo Rivera. Okay, one of the last times you were on with Dan Bongino on Hannity, which ends up being a car wreck each time now. Tarring immigrants with disease. Geraldo, why do you think they started having entry points like Ellis Island? Right. Because a lot of people were bringing tuberculosis and things like that. Right. They were, we have this great American story about immigration into America, but a lot of them were sent back because they were sick.
Yes.
So it's not a myth. Yes. Okay. Yep. And just virtue signaling is just awful. I mean, everybody knows there's a pandemic. I mean, you can't even turn on the news without hearing about it. I'll say, don't pretend it's, one group just isn't affected by it. That's ridiculous. Okay. George and I are concerned with everybody's health. Right. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's right. So I got one more thumbs down, which is Maureen Dowd. Not the great journalist, to say the least. She wrote a column in the New York Times today in which she was mildly critical of Barack Obama, in particular his Martha's Vineyard party. And she said, well, it's kind of looking like Obama really prizes his celebrity friends, and that he seems to value the friendship of celebrities more than the people who actually made Obama, who actually delivered the presidency for Obama, all the people like David Axelrod, because they weren't invited to this party, but various celebrities were. This very mild criticism has evinced this enormous outrage on Twitter. How dare anyone criticize the god Barack Obama,
leader?
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous that in any case that any smart journalist should now realized that, well, maybe Obama seems to value celebrities more than the people who actually helped create Obama, helped deliver the presidency for him, all the people who manufactured the whole legend of Obama. And that all he really ever wanted to do was hang out with celebrities and make a ton of money. That's been obvious for many years. But the idea of bringing this up in the New York Times, and boom, the place goes berserk.
Well, just file that under Obama-Rama drama, okay? And that's but that's his whole presidency, was Obama-Rama drama.
Yes.
That's all it was. It was an empty suit presidency, absolutely empty suit.
Absolutely, yeah, totally. I mean, when you look back now, that whole nonsense. Oh, well, I'm anti-war, because I was against the Iraq War in 2002. And Bill Clinton was absolutely right in the 2008 campaign. He said, this is all nonsense. The guy voted for every single appropriation for Iraq. So don't present yourself as this great foe of the Iraq War. You voted for every time there was any money to be sent for Iraq, you voted for it. So, Clinton was right. No one listened to it because everyone just fell in love with the idea of having a black man as president.
Yeah.
And he just glided by.
And I challenge anyone watching this. What was one policy for 8 years that Obama got his hands dirty? There wasn't one. Not including his Obamacare. Okay.
No.
He couldn't be bothered.
Right.
He couldn't be bothered. People like to joke about, Joe Biden, working 1 hour a day and taking long weekends. Obama did essentially the same thing. He just hung out with his celebrity friends. See, that's what it was. It was the first celebrity presidency. Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah. And Trump, because of his peculiarities, because he already was a celebrity, yes, brought that on. And that's why Joe is such a flop. Okay. Right. And it's like, where's the pizzazz? Where's the drama? No, there isn't any. See, it's really interesting. If you bookend those two, Obama and Trump, it created a paradigm that people thirsted for. That's okay, right. Because the country's going to hell in a handbasket. At least entertain us.
That's it. But it's an interesting contrast because, as you say, Trump already was a celebrity, but he didn't hang out with celebrities while he was president because all the celebrities shunned him. So he was kind of, other than his various rich New York friends, he didn't really hang out with them because no one in Hollywood would wanted to have anything to do with Trump. So in his earlier incarnation, yes, he did hang out with celebrities, but as president, he didn't do so. But Biden doesn't do that. And Biden wasn't invited to this party, the Martha's Vineyard party. And you could argue that without Biden, Obama probably would never have been president. I mean, Obama needed some kind of a ballast, someone there who was, a safe pair of hands, because people were nervous about this neophyte becoming president. So he needed Biden. Biden didn't get an invitation. He's not glamorous. Biden doesn't hang out with celebrities.
The Obama era, the
right.
joke is on us.
Right, that's right.
Okay, that's it.
I'm out. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything more.
All right, everybody. That was the earth-shaking thumbs up, thumbs down. We did it again this week here, and we will continue this tradition. We are on Locals right now, so go to thegaggle.locals.com. We're doing interviews with gagglers via Zoom. The store is up. Buy some nice merch there. We've done Q&As. We're going to do one this week for sure. Live streaming is in the. We've already done some live streaming, and we're going to do a Q&A, a super chat on YouTube.
Yeah, we're going to fix a time for that. So yeah, we're going to do that very shortly. And you failed to mention the Buddy tip jar, which Buddy has helped himself to. With great deal of self-indulgence.
He hears tip jar.
Yeah, gluttony is one of the deadly sins. You got to know that. But in all seriousness, anything you can help us with, is most appreciated. We don't have billionaires underwriting us, so we rely on the kindness of strangers. And so any help, support you offer us is always very welcome and much appreciated. And remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.